Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. I'm your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert, and we've got a little different show for you this evening. We're going to get into that in just a couple of minutes here, but I want to take just a moment to thank our sponsor for tonight, Nationwide IT Services. You can see their number, their website on the screen. Nationwide IT Services is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. They are also an 8A certified small business by the Small Business Administration, and they provide a variety of management services, IT, training support, and basic support for both public and private sector businesses. So if your business is looking for some good help, some excellent, outstanding, and experienced service, contact CK Park and his crew. And you see the number there, 703-750-0453. Their email is there as well, and their website. And they will be able to provide you with excellent service. So again, thank you to Nationwide IT for sponsoring our veterans program. So let's talk about tonight's show, and we wanted to do something a little different tonight, and you can probably tell based on my hat that I'm wearing that this is going to be a little different holiday show, and I'm bringing back a couple of guests that we had on before in earlier shows, and in fact, I've got two of the gentlemen here, and I'll reintroduce them in just a minute. But we did have a third. We had a retired Marine Master Sergeant scheduled, and unfortunately, Chan came down ill. And between a combination of him being ill and having issues with his computer, he is unable to join us tonight. So we want to send a well wish out to Chan, hoping he gets better soon. And I'm sure I'll be talking with him again. But coming back to join us this evening is United States Navy Submariner Aram Rice, who was on a few months ago. And Aram and I had a pretty good conversation about his experiences on the submarine. And Aram's based in Northern Virginia. And then I have also retired Army Master Sergeant Andre Dickson, who's down in the Carolinas and who's now sporting a beard, I see. Gray at that, too. So, you know, it's great to have these two guys back on the show. So, guys, thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yes, Paul. My pleasure for sure, brother.
Yeah, and you know what I'd like to do this evening is something just a little different. You know, you guys were on before, and we had a one-on-one conversation about, you know, your experiences in the military and how you felt about those experiences and the things that you're doing now. And Andre, I know that you are actually retired. I'm still jealous about that, man. You know, I don't know what to say, considering especially that you're younger than I am. And I know, Aram, you're still involved in IT work, but you're also doing your antique business still. So you guys are both, you know, Andre, I know you're busy trying to enjoy life, so whether you're working or not. But I wanted to take a little time this evening and share some experiences with the audience about holidays and some of your holidays in the military and how those experiences went for you. And, you know, I've got a couple of experiences that I'll share myself with you guys too. But, you know, Andre, let's start with you. If you had a particular holiday experience in the Army that really stood out to you, what is it? Share it with us.
Wow, you know, I thought about that, and what kept coming to mind was the Thanksgiving that I was not able to eat. And so, as you know, I attended Ranger School Class 1-90. So I started Ranger School October, and that brought me in. If I didn't get recycled, it would have brought me through December. So I essentially spent one of my favorite times of the year. I love to eat. I eat. I'm a foodie. And I spent Thanksgiving hungry with no food because I didn't have any food. And I could just remember just thinking like, wow, how did I get here? How did I get here during Thanksgiving? And these people are, being mean to me and screaming at me. And so that's one of a few, but that's one that sticks out to me the most. The Thanksgiving that I was unable to eat.
Well, I can tell you how you got there. You were crazy enough to volunteer for Ranger School. That's what happened. And
yeah, well, you see, once you volunteer for anything in the military, you can't put that handbag down.
I mean, you didn't hear me. You didn't hear me. I was just, Paul made me do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm afraid you couldn't blame me for that one because you didn't know me back then. But yeah, I mean, I know having been stationed at Fort Benning, where the Ranger School is, and of course the jump school and all that, we used to see all those guys and doing all the hula hula stuff, and as we used to call it. But yeah, I guess I could see that. And so what did you do that day that you weren't eating? I know they starved you to death in Ranger School, and it's not quite the same for Aram, who was on a submarine. We'll talk about that in a minute, where he got fed good food, I'm sure, by the Navy.
Good food.
But, so but you're out there in Ranger School. So what were you doing that day that you didn't get to eat?
Well, that's just part of the process for those who may not be familiar with Ranger School. Ranger School is the elite leadership school for the military, and so you go through different phases, and you go without sleep, without food, and that kind of stuff. So that was just part of the process. At that stage, you just didn't have food, and that was a stage where they gave us a whole box of MREs, which I think 12 came in a box. They gave that to us like 7 days prior. And, we could eat what we wanted. We wanted to eat 5 at one sitting, we could. So towards the end of that phase, most of us didn't have anything like to eat. Maybe like perhaps a pack of crackers or something. But it was a sad time. It was a sad time.
Not quite like mom's cooking, is it?
Oh
no. The most fun you never want to have again.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's why I keep a whole fridge of food. I just eat, and I get my wife to bake, and life is good.
That is good. That's
making
good.
up for lost time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Aram, why don't you share one of those experiences with us too?
Well, so my favorite one, or well, I guess the one that comes to mind the most. I went on deployment with the USS Newport News, and we started just before Christmas, and it was a 6-month deployment, and we were underwater for Christmas, and my birthday is actually 3 days after Christmas, so my birthday is December 28th. So for both Christmas and my birthday, I was underwater when I turned 23, and at that time, since it was my first deployment, and it was the beginning of deployment, so I wasn't qualified as a submariner, which meant I didn't have my fish, and I was on the way. I was a hot runner, which meant that I consistently got more than 2 signatures a week. And I was able to get my fish within 6 months. I believe it was 3 months. 3 months actually of being on the boat, which was very good. Although knowing what I know now, I probably would have taken my time, taken the full 8 months. But it was good to be on top of it like that. But like I said before, at that time I was not qualified, and so I was working in the kitchen. Even though my rate, I was in IT, but everybody that's not qualified, if you're not qualified for your watch, then you can't stand your watch while you're underway. So they call unqualified personnel on submarines nubs, non-useful bodies.
Yeah.
So at that
Make
time,
you feel real good, right?
yeah. At that time, I was not a useful body, so I was serving in the kitchen, which it's kind of a good deal, except for all the cleaning and everything, and of course everybody gives you a hard time, but that's just the way of it. So it was different. Submarines are supposed to have the best food in the Navy because it is a little bit more taxing mentally than the surface Navy, because of the lack of communication and things like that with loved ones and so on. But the good food was frozen lobster and frozen steak, and that we got that once a week. And I believe we got it for Christmas that day, but we didn't get it on my birthday. And it is lobster, but it is not exactly good lobster, shall we say?
Well, you know what? I could just see myself. My wife is a lobster connoisseur.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just see myself trying to offer my wife frozen lobster for one of her lobster runs. Yeah, honey, we don't need to go all the way up there. We'll just take one out of the freezer over here. Yeah, I could just imagine that. So you mean to tell me they wouldn't feed you lobster or what you wanted on your birthday either, huh?
Well, no, of course not. My birthday wasn't that special.
not to them anyway, right?
No, not to them, not to them.
So
Andre, I was a nub still, so it was especially not important to them.
So I was just going to say, you're talking about being a nub, Andre. Doesn't that remind you of how we used to tease privates that they were basically the same MOS as a pop-up target on an M16 range?
Yeah.
You remember those days? Or an in-flight projectile repairman?
Yeah.
You can imagine that one, Aaron. Telling a private, he's going to be an in-flight Projo repairman.
Well, see, I went in later, obviously a little in the at the beginning of the teens in the 2000s, and so I didn't get it as bad as they used to get it. The hazing and a lot of the rites of passage and rituals and so on that have been performed in the Navy are no longer allowed, because people had taken it too far, and things got out of hand, and so they just decided that the Navy decided to do a zero tolerance policy on all that stuff. But I knew submariners prior to me, one in particular that went to my church, and that was actually counseling me before I became a submariner. He had done 20 years on a submarine. He said when he was a nub I believe it was in the 70s or the 80s. On his first night on board, they duct taped him to the back of one of the ladder wells and just left him there overnight. And I guess the engineer, the ship's engineer, was doing his rounds because he had duty that night. Was doing his rounds and saw him at the back of the staircase or the ladder well, and he goes, "Shipmate, how you doing?" He was like, "I'm okay." And he goes, "All right, enjoy your night."
Kept on going, right?
Kept on going.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I got to tell you guys, I think one of my first unique experiences when I was in the Army, I had several, but I think one unique one that I had was my second tour in Korea. Around 1985, I was assigned to the 38th Infantry. And that's a leg infantry battalion. So, Aram, that means they're walking infantry.
Okay.
I spent 2 rotations up on the DMZ, and it just so happened that I got to spend my first Christmas Eve up there sitting in guard post Olette, right on the DMZ. Now, if you're familiar with that, and Andre, I don't know how much about the Korean DMZ, but Olette and Collier are right there along the DMZ, and there's nothing in front of you but razor wire, claymore mines, and then the DMZ in North Korea. And it was so crazy that North Koreans used to come up at night and turn the Claymore mines back towards the guard posts.
Wow.
And I still remember spending a Christmas Eve sitting in guard post Olet, looking through what was then we thought was high speed stuff, night vision goggles, the old fashioned ones. And, of course, we were sitting there looking for anything and movement in front of us. It was cold as heck because the guard post was pretty much open. You couldn't really have heat because you couldn't close up anything to hear what was going on around you. And then we were serenaded with Christmas music from North Korea. All of the propaganda music that played all night long to make sure that you didn't get any sleep. So not only was it cold, not only was it Christmas Eve and we didn't get to see Santa Claus, we couldn't have any hot cocoa. And instead of listening to good Christmas music, we were listening to North Korea propaganda loudspeakers. So that was my first
stuff.
Yeah, the first, how can I say, really super unusual Christmas in the military.
Those are the kind of Christmases that really make you miss and appreciate home.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys, and we're gonna continue to share here, but I mean, yeah, you just hit the nail on the head, Aram. I mean, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit later on about how Christmas is different for us now and what it means to you now. But you guys, one of the big things about being in the military that you're well aware of is the holidays and things that you spend away from home. Like Aram, you on the submarine, Andre, you in Ranger School and other places, when you were in the Army. And, we all had that experience of spending holidays away from home. And, I just know, for you guys as well as me, it makes it a special place. So, Andre, what else can you share with us? Do you have another interesting experience that you had while you were on active duty with the holidays?
There's so much, it kind of blends in. I spent a lot of time away, and it just becomes like the norm. Everything everything is okay. As long as you know everything is okay at home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of go do what you need to do, and that's where you are because you're trying to get back home. But no, I really can't think of anything that really stands out. It's
that Tops Ranger School, huh?
that top's starving during my favorite Thanksgiving.
Yeah. No, my father was I was telling you guys before, my father was Air Force for 25 years, and most of his deployments were over Christmas. I think he had 12 deployments I remember over the course of my life from the time I was born until I left his house at 18, that he was gone over Christmas and so on. And one of the things I remember most, actually, when we were really young, we lived in Nebraska because his plane flew out of Offutt, and we had a local news crew coming to the house because we had we'd missed our dad so many Christmases prior to that we decided to have Christmas early before he left for the deployment. So they came and I guess did a news report or article on all of the different ways that military families were celebrating Christmas, because it does take a toll on the family, and it is important, like you said, to know that everything's okay at home and be able to, know that your family's all right and know that you're in a good standing, a good place with all of them. But, no matter how good you are or whatnot, it still takes a toll, especially when, especially young kids. So, that was harder. And I know as I got, when I was in the Navy, I was unattached, and, I was single, and, my family they knew where I was. And so it wasn't a huge deal. And also because my dad was military, they understood, anytime I said, oh, I can't come to whatever, they completely understood because of how my father was. And Yeah, the only thing that made the holidays really hard was not necessarily really hard, but the annoyance of the holidays was the drills on the submarine, getting woken up in the middle of whatever time you were trying to sleep to drill, whether it be a fire drill or a flooding drill or so on and so forth. You have to do it throughout deployments and underways, but it is a pain in the butt. And especially around the holidays, it's a very stressful time because, everybody's away from their families. And, just because I was unattached and at the time doesn't mean, all the other guys on my boat, it's a huge brotherhood. It's a camaraderie, and, that kind of stress, it goes around, so you definitely feel it.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, we're going to continue this conversation right after our commercial break. And for those of you listening to the show, hold on for just a minute. We'll be right back after this break. All right. Welcome back, everyone. And once again, you're listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Veterans Corner. And we're in this little special Christmas session tonight. We've got return guests, Aram Rice and Andre Dickson, two of my previous guests. And we're here sharing experiences in the military around the holidays. And as we go forward, let me just kind of share one other thing with you two guys. We were talking earlier, and I was listening to you talk about, how being away from the holidays affects everyone, and always knowing that if your family's okay and things are okay at home, things are tolerable. And I remember that too, being in the Army. If you knew your family was okay and taken care of, you could kind of concentrate on the mission at hand and not be too worried. But I have to tell you, I remember one Christmas when I was deployed to the desert for Desert Storm, and we had been living out of armored tracks. I had very little hot food during the time, and it just so happened that they set up, Aaron, of course, this isn't like the galley on your submarine, but the Army used to tote around those mobile kitchen trailers. Remember those, Andre? And Yeah, they would come up and pull up and cook hot food for us, and it was the first hot meal. It was a Christmas meal, and it was the first hot meal that we had had in probably about 10 days.
Mhm.
And we had been living off those MREs.
Oh,
Um, so I remember going in, my soldiers all ate and got a plate, and I went into the MKT. And just as I was going in, I looked off in the distance, and oh my gosh, off in the distance, here come a huge sandstorm,
Yeah.
what they used to call a shamal. And so I said, okay, I'm going in here. I'm getting me some food. I went in one end of the MKT, and by the time I came out the other end, the sandstorm was right up on us.
Yeah.
And of course, I tried to make a beeline for my armored track so I could get inside to eat my food before the sandstorm caught me. And I'm running for the track, yelling to my driver, open the door, open the door. And I didn't quite make it. So I ended up with a half plate of cold food filled with sand.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, as that sandstorm, I crawled in the back of my track, and I'm sitting there watching my driver eat this plate of hot food. And I'm sitting there looking at my plate covered with sand, and I'm going, "Oh, you gotta be kidding!" Now I will say this: my driver was good enough. Anthony, he was good enough. He offered to share some of his food with me, and I told him, "No, I'll go back once the storm's passed, and I'll go get something. You enjoy your food." But I never will forget that. And you know, I know, Andre, with you starving to death in Ranger School and having to eat MREs, and then we have Aram sitting here talking about how he had his frozen lobster on the submarine. I'm not sure I feel too bad for him. Do you?
But Paul, did you just tell us you tried to outrun a sandstorm? Did I hear you?
Hey, listen, I was about 34 years old then, a whole lot younger, a whole lot lighter on my feet without bad knees, and I could still scoot. Now, if I had to outrun anything for my food now, I'd be starved to death because my legs were so bad. In fact, I couldn't catch my wife if she was holding a plate in front of me and told me I couldn't eat until I caught her. I'd be in trouble. But back then, yes, I did.
Well, at least you didn't have to at least you didn't have to deal with the flies that would have been to deal with during the day.
Yeah. I mean, well, we go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you got to pick your poison.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, we had a meal up by the Euphrates during that same time, and we basically got a plate of food, and we were sitting there, and you trying to hold your food, and you're doing this and stabbing with a fork, putting it in your mouth, and doing this. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So Aram, thank goodness the guys on your sub didn't smell bad enough for you guys to have the flies down in the galley.
Well, now we only didn't have, I would say we only didn't have flies because it was pretty hard for them to live. But as far as smelling bad, there are some guys down there that they could put some dumpsters to shame. I tell you what.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, we had a gentleman. He was a bit antisocial, I should say, and he was a nuclear rate. And a lot of those gentlemen are very book smart, but not very socially apt, shall we say?
Yeah.
And I will say this: I was laundry duty for a while, and that was a great job, great gig. But every division has a day where they're all able to do their laundry, and you sign up for time slots because for 160 or 170 people, there's only one washer and one dryer on the whole boat. And so you have your one day, and you bring your laundry bag down to the laundry guy, and he'll put it in and put it out, and then deliver it to your rack or what have you, or you come pick it up. Well, most people, we have our poopy suits that we would wear, and so most people, it's every week or every 2 weeks that you get your laundry day. So most people would bring, if it was weekly, they would bring 2 poopy suits and 5 or 6 undershirts, 5 or 6 pairs of skivvies, and 5 or 6 pairs of socks. This gentleman, he brought 1 poopy suit, 1 undershirt, 1 pair of skivvies, and one pair of socks for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks of laundry.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
his rack smelled like fish, like just straight fish, so badly you could smell his rack through the passageway, through the bulkhead. His
Hmm.
rack, so there was the main passageway, and his rack faced the main passageway, and you could smell his rack through the bulkhead. And one of the officers actually smelled his rack through the bulkhead while he was doing his rounds, and he did a 1MC and woke up the entire boat. So
Yeah.
everybody on the boat had to clean the whole boat because of this guy. He smelled
Oh,
so
God.
bad.
Wow.
Well, that's yeah. So Andre, I know you've had your share of some of those type of experiences with folks out on the field um, during your Army days, and especially I'm sure in Ranger School or on some of your deployments. Um, but I want to shift focus here for just a moment, if I can. You know, we've been talking about some of the unique experiences we've had and things around the holidays and experiences just by virtue of, you know, the career that we had. And, you know, each one of us have had those strange experiences and unusual and sometimes, you know, not so pleasant. Um, but now that you're retired, Andre, what are the holidays like for you now? What do they mean to you now? Because I know you've got kids and they're pretty much grown now. But you know, having those kids around when they were younger and you had just retired, what can you tell us about the holidays now that you're retired?
Wow, you know, I make sure that I just tell myself every day how lucky I am and how blessed I am. And I show gratitude every day because nothing is promised to us. And all this stuff could be taken away from you, like, you know, whenever. So when it comes to you know, I tell my wife, you know, I try and celebrate like it's Christmas. I try to live my life like it's Christmas every day, not in the sense of you know, gifts and that sort of thing, but just living a good life, trying to be the best person you can, loving your neighbor, because in the end, if we talk about what Christmas is, you know, it's you know, the birth of Jesus, and in the end, it's all about love. But you know, I just try and live every day to be grateful and to be kind to my fellow, you know, person on my left and my right. I don't always succeed, but I try. So,
Well, I think that's the thing, you know, no one's perfect,
yeah.
but you have that sense of understanding now of how important some of these things are, you know, and how the holidays are different. What about you, Aram?
Well, you know, I feel like I'm definitely along the same vein. You know, I think a lot of opportunities get put in front of us, and I try to make the most of those opportunities and try to be as loving and caring as I can, and seizing whatever opportunities. You know, I will say I am very appreciative now to be able to come home every day, no matter what day it is. You know, being in the military definitely gave me a much higher appreciation for that. You know, throughout the holidays, it's especially nice because it's a universally recognized very special time. So, you know, most everyone in my families recognizes, oh, you know, this is a very special time to be together as family. But anytime I have the opportunity to be around family, and you know, now that you know I've been married for just over a year now, and having the opportunity to spend that time with my wife every day is you know, something that I try to cherish every single day. You know, I try to choose that love every day and be active in that. And you know, I know for a fact that being in the military gave me that much more appreciation for that, you know, gratitude and that love, and in every situation, but you know, especially during the holidays.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you both. Yeah, I mean that does sound so familiar, and I know even in my own life, you know, I'm at a point now where, you know, I'm in my 60s, and you know, I was blessed to find find someone to spend the rest of my life with now that has meant so much. And I look back on those days when I was in the military and how different things were. And, part of me doing this show was actually helping me deal with some of the things that happened to me in the military and the effects. And to have someone around me now that is so important to me in my life and that has helped me so much in my life, to where now holidays, even though my family, my side of the family all live away. My wife has a very, very large family up in this area. And I often tease her and say, hey, the holidays are coming up. If your family's going to get together, don't we need to get together and get a parade permit from the city? Yeah, because you're talking 40 plus people crammed in a big house, eating in shifts.
That's so special, though. It's I love a huge family gathering. I remember that from when I was a kid, my mom's side of the family, and that's just so special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does make a difference. And when you look back on it, Andre, I know you having been deployed to a number of places, and since we were both in the Army too, it's you look back on those times you were gone and you missed, and Aram, not just holidays, but birthdays, other family holidays and gatherings, to where I think now we have a better appreciation for what some of those things mean.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, not just an appreciation for what those things mean. I think overall it's an appreciation for time. It's a huge respect for the time that you get to spend with people. Growing up with a father in the military, the one thing that I learned very quickly was proximity and time do not determine the amount that you love someone or the amount that you respect someone. Just because someone's not right there doesn't mean that you don't love them unconditionally. And just because somebody's not right next to you doesn't mean that they're not your father, they're not your son, they're not your husband, so on and so forth. But I think understanding that it's a time as a sacrifice is possible, and it is important, especially as a military member. I think having that respect for time and knowing what that time costs, it gives you a huge respect for all of the time that you do get to spend with your family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let me ask you. Oh, go ahead, Andre. You want to ask?
No, I was.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, as we get ready to wrap the show up, I want to ask you guys, and Andre, I'm going to start with you. If there was a particular message you'd like to share with the audience and the veterans about the holidays, the appreciation or something like that, what would you say to them?
I would say the holidays for some can be a very sad time. I'm blessed. For me, it's a very fun time, but for many, it's not a very fun time for various reasons. Reach out, to your friends, to your family, especially if you haven't heard from them. Listen to, subtle, maybe things that they may say that, may prompt you to ask, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid if you love someone, your friend, your buddy, your cousin, whoever. Don't be afraid, to ask that person if they're okay. If you see signs that person may not be okay, because in the end, if a friend really loves you, that's what a friend is gonna do. So, that's what I would say.
That's a good point. Aram, what about you?
I think along the same vein, it's something I would like to leave everybody with is just make sure that you're taking time to take care of yourself and to love yourself, because the holidays, at least for me growing up, it was a big time that focused on family and focused on loving for each other and being grateful for everything that you had with each other. But especially like Andre was saying, it is a really stressful time for a lot of people, and having that self-love and that understanding that you are worth it, you are important, And just because you're not around the people, you're not around people that love you, or you're not around people that you would necessarily want to be around, or whatever, for whatever times, but especially the holidays, doesn't mean you're not worth it and you're not loved and you're not important. So definitely be aware that you are worthy.
Yeah, and you know what, I got to tell you, I think you guys had a very good message for the veterans out there, because one of the things that I always do, and I'm going to ask Cece, if she would, to put that information up on the screen now for us real quick for the veterans that we usually put up, and there it is. Thank you. You guys both had a good message for not only just people out there in general, but veterans too, especially during this time of year when a lot of them are struggling with all kinds of issues. So, I appreciate that message, and I want to make sure I take the time to share this. When you see on the screen there, this is the time of year to give whatever you can to not just to our veterans, but as you said, to family, friends, and others who are in need. But for those of you who would like to help those veterans out there, you can see the website up there at va.gov. There are all kinds of volunteer activities in different areas around the United States. And I would encourage you to take this message that Aram and Andre have shared about the holidays, and not just loving yourself, but reaching out to other people, and do so as much as you can. Well, guys, I want to thank you again for coming on the show and sharing your experiences with us. And it's always nice to hear that I wasn't the only crazy one in the bunch. And I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you guys for what you're doing. And I thank you so much for spending time with us this evening.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
All right. And for those of you out in the audience, I want to thank you for listening again to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. As you know, we always strive to bring veterans in to share their stories, but I thought this would be a nice little change, and to share some holiday experiences with other veterans. Veterans, as always, we want to thank you for your service, and we hope that you are able to live your most productive life. I'm your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert, and I want to invite you to come back after the holidays, when we will pick up the program again. So I hope to see you again on January the 7th. So for all of our listeners,